So welcome to Module 3, where we're going to look at voice. We're going to look at an aspiration framework to help us in our classrooms and the concept of warm demanders. This makes lots of connections to your earlier modules, thinking about that culture of caring, social emotional learning, and that framing for a team kid mindset. So let's get started. Do you have your cell phone close by or a Google search that might be available? Do you have an image maybe in your office or your classroom that sparks joy, that helps you remind yourself that your voice matters? Here are two examples that I love. That first image was sent to me in 2014, and it's my screensaver. I love the joy and the expression and the amplification of the idea of voice. And the second one is from my amazing students, where we had an opportunity to really celebrate the voices of students who spoke not only one, not only two, but 3 languages. And some of them are off to college already, learning 4th and 5th and maybe more languages. So how do we use our voice? And what exactly do we mean by voice as we think about this module? Some ways to think about voice that are incredibly important is to think about the concept of aspirations. How do we help our students dream and do simultaneously? And in order to know that, we need to bring the voice into the classroom. Great researcher Russ Quaglia has created a framework that helps us think about this work. How do we define aspirations? Here's what Dr. Quaglia says. It's the ability to dream and set goals for the future while being inspired in the present to reach those dreams. Aspirations are both then and now. They involve both dreaming of the future and doing in the present. They are made up of a vision of where we want to get and, at a minimum, a willingness to do what is necessary to get there. We can take a look at our definition graphically. If we think about each aspect, this present and doing, and the future dreaming, the 2 aspects of the definition provide us with the 4 categories. In your module, go ahead and take a look in the study guide at this website, qisa.org. And you'll find more about some of the resources that Dr. Russ Quaglia offers. When I became a superintendent, the first thing I did is I invited him out and I said, we need to put our student voice at the center. And we need a way of thinking about how we elevate that voice. And this framework helps us think about this dreaming and doing work. So we have students who might be hibernating. How do we go in and wake those students up and really connect with them with that culture of caring? How do we also help our students get to that place where they understand what school is about, but that it really has a higher purpose in meeting their aspirations? This framework really helps us think about how we can do that work, and more importantly, strategies that we can add to that toolbox or that tool belt to help facilitate that in our classroom. I'd like you to personalize this for a moment. Think about a handful of students that you're working with intensely right now, maybe in that multi-tiered system of supports. Where would you put them in terms of what you currently know about them and their aspirations? Do you know what your students ultimately want to do? And can you help guide them to that aspirational space to close that dreaming doing gap? Dr. Quaglia has been an incredible writer who has produced lots of strategies for us during this pandemic. And so one such resource is to also think about this in that remote learning environment. We've rolled off to remote, we've rolled in, we've been virtual, we've been face-to-face. We've had lots of new spaces for learning. And so he offers these 10 strategies that you can use right now in your classroom. So take a moment and think about what's working for you right now. Are you connected to any of these ideas? And what might you be able to try out tomorrow in your classroom? Take a moment to peruse these ideas. Did you find a couple that you like? I sure know that I have found several. I especially love the one about unmasking heroes. And what that really means is find out who those heroes are in our students' community. How did they get connected with them? What do they want to do to advocate for them? And how might we learn from them? Hold on to that idea when we get to our next module around deeper learning. And so in thinking about this voice, this amplification of voice, and using it in the context of aspirations, there's a braid that we need to pull together. We need to be clear about what's the content. What do we put our voice behind? What is it that students should be learning? Really thinking about perhaps even that academic integration with both the content and the social emotional learning. What's the process? What's the ways in which we can help our students really unpack their critical thinking? How might we also work with other colleagues to unpack this space as well? And then that third part of that braid is group development. How do we come together to become smarter together, to do the work together that's not only about getting to a product, but it's about getting to an outcome around that culture of caring in our classrooms. So when we think about the culture of caring, you're probably thinking, Frances, what are you talking about? Well, it really comes back to the work of Dr. Nell Noddings. I love her work, and there's a beautiful connection and relationship to her work and the work of Dr. Resqualia. In fact, she says that we need to look not only at the fact that teachers say they care, which I know you do, but how do we get a feedback loop from our students that say, I know my teacher cares, and here's why. So as we do that work together, we think about the framework and the research of Dr. Resqualia, and he asks our students to tell us the ways in which their teachers show this. Here are some of the ways that it manifests. Take a look at some of the data on this screen right now. So as you reflect on these data points, and you've had a chance to marinate with them a little bit, a question might be, how are you gathering data in your system? Look at those percentages around students ideating around their dreams. Look at those percentages around teachers who know their students. How might you take the I Know My Classroom survey and share that with your students? And then use that feedback loop to guide how you'd like to see things shift or be amplified in your classroom. Have you had an opportunity to not only in your classroom ask students how they're doing, but has your district or your system or your school ask students, how are they feeling about this? And did you do this before and during? And will you do it after? So think about these data points and how we can use this voice in our classrooms to elevate what needs to happen for our young people. It goes back to that fundamental question again. Who do you need me to be? And these data points really help us chew on the ideas that we really need to see flourish in our system. So if I were to give you a piece of bubble gum, my hunch is you'd pick it right up and start chewing on it, right? And you'd blow some bubbles. So what do you want to put your energy into? What might be those bubbles that you blow? And it's so challenging as we think about all of these pieces coming together in our classroom, these pieces of bubble gum. And we think about who I need to be. It takes us into this place again with our voice of thinking about how do we use it. There's some phenomenal research around being a warm demander. And we've all struggled with this because in a pandemic, we're being caring. But also part of being caring is also being demanding with our students about what they need and supporting them in that. It's about being clear about the content that we're going to teach. And I've seen teachers do incredible things that I hope we carry forward in this pandemic. I've seen them plan collaboratively to get really clear about things like mastery learning, what really matters, and attend to that with their students in their classroom. And doing it in a way that they care. Caring is not enough. It certainly is a lot, but we've also got to couple it with the things that our students need to know and be able to do. This helps us with that acceleration of learning and going deep in our learning. So how might you do this, especially in a pandemic? And especially doing it in a culturally responsive way. Dr. Zaretta Hammond offers some ways of thinking about this work. So much of her research has taken in what we know about the brain, what we know about caring, and she situates it in ways that are incredibly respectful around culturally responsive practices. So take a look at this and think about these two sides of the coin that you see here, and think about what does that coin look like for you in your classroom. We've been through a lot together. So let's do a little here's what, so what, now what. We've looked at the landscape again, team kid leadership. We've gone into the space of caring, really connecting some ideas around social emotional learning, both for the students and the adults in our schools and systems. And we've taken a look at the role of voice in that work and how you might be a warm demander as you learn more about that voice. Now, what are we going to do about it? Take a look in your module. There's a frame here. We have this existing state. And we have a desired state that we'd like to see. What might that look like for you? Jot down some notes. What's happening in your current environment? And what might you carry forward? What we've done today is mediated some of the space on that arrow there around some knowledge, skills, and dispositions that can really help us get there. And in the voice of one of my colleagues who I just absolutely adore, Dr. Tori Wieston-Serdan, she might actually push you a little farther And she'll say, in this work of your desired state, what will be your freedom dreaming thinking? She's worked with tons of youth across this nation around critical mentoring and brings together this space for us to really reimagine with a different type of lens around what that existing state can shift to when it comes to our goals with our desired state. So do some freedom dreaming around your map, and let's catch up in Module 4, where we look at deeper learning practices together.